This week, the Imperium maintains the pressure on Triumvirate. Brave Collective take the next step in their expansion program. Nullsechnaya Sholupen get a new name. A Ragnarok strikes again. FI.RE and friends grind hard to remove the initiative from Curse. Third time's the charm for the flying dangerous staging Astra House. Fast kick structures keep generating content in the south. And a pilot is remembered the EVE way. Hello pod people, I'm Frost and this is your weekly EVE Online update. Welcome back. So I have lots to cover this week, but as always, we start the show by announcing the winners of the prize draw of the Scope Syndication skin. Unfortunately, my two winners this week haven't actually come through and contacted me. So RCRelB and Chris Rose, those are your YouTube names. You need to come onto my Discord and DM me, please, so that I can sort out your skins for you. But the good news is that it's still November, so we have two more Healer Gila skins to give away a little bit later on in the show. Right, so first up, I have reached 6,000 subs on the YouTube channel. So thank you very much for that. Thank you for helping the channel grow. We're heading off towards 10,000, hopefully. Now, what I need to do first, though, is I need to jump up into my box because someone mentioned in the comments a few episodes ago that maybe for when I get to 6,000 subs, I should add another color to my pen. So are you ready for this? We've got pink. We've got blue, and now we have yellow. So there you go. So hopefully that will help me out, having that extra color on my pen. We'll have to wait and see. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to work our way clockwise around the donut. I keep leaving Cloud Ring to the end, but I think what we'll do is we'll start with Cloud Ring and then we'll kind of work our way around like so. Right, so with Cloud Ring, obviously the big news here, let me jump into Cloud Ring, is the advance of the Imperium into Cloud Ring. Now, if you haven't seen it, on my Twitch show last week on Friday, I interviewed Gas Terrell, who is the Alliance leader of Triumvirate, and I highlighted the actual interview out of the episode, and I put it here on YouTube. So it's the episode before this, or the video before this. So please go and check it out because that really gives you a really good understanding of what is happening in Cloud Ring from Triumvirate's perspective. So as we know now is that, you know, the main things are the original systems that were taken, which was BTAC-D, BTAC-D, BYQ. Wow, I really struggled with that one. And F7C-H0 was to create a jump bridge network to allow them to get out towards nullsec. So, out towards lowsec. So that's kind of the main reason there. But obviously since then things have moved on and we've now seen a French connection trying to take this constellation here. And then we have Ranger Regiment, if I remember rightly. Yeah, they've got a couple of systems down here and a few more up there. Oops, my doodle's a bit all over the place. And then we've got Deepwater Hooligans on, I can use my yellow pen here, there you go. We've got Deepwater Hooligans down here as well with a system into Syndicate. Obviously the main element last week was the staging system of Triumvirate. So the Fortizar there was destroyed of OTAC-Z or O-ZXUV. The focus this week has been on the Fortizar in O-IV and H. Now, I have a couple of battle reports here. So you can see here that this one was for the armor timer, I believe. They did get some help come in for Triumvirate. So Pandemic Horde and Northern Coalition came along with Greater Trash Community. So that's, you know, We Form Volta, Toilet Paper, We Form Blob, for example, all part of Greater Trash Community. Also, it's not always very clear what Triumvirate's standings are as to whether they're part of Greater Trash Community or not. My understanding now from Ghast is that they are not part of Greater Trash Community as a full-blown member, but they do have a very, very close relationship with them. And that's kind of where we stand at the moment. The other thing as well, as I mentioned last week, was that Snuffed Out showed up on the armor timer, I think it was, for the other fort. And I wasn't sure how the situation was there. And they were actually invited. They did come as friends and they were given docking rights and they did Skynet off the fort. So Snuffed Out there, kind of getting involved in some nullsec sovereignty warfare there. Okay, so what else did we have with that? So the Imperium managed to reinforce it, but at a price. As you can see, they had a 62 billion loss versus a 28 billion loss there from Pandemic Horde, Northern Coalition, Triumvirate, and Greater Trash Community. Then the final timer came out on Sunday, and here you could see the Fortizar was indeed destroyed. But what was interesting was that Ghast and Greater Trash Community as a whole, they do like their excuse me, mind blank. They do like their nightmares, but in this case, they actually came out with rocks. So these are sniping rocks. So the idea is these have got super long range normally, and then they can basically just try and snipe off, you know, the hacks, the shield hacks that were trying to kill the Fortizar. I mean, shield hacks were enforced here by Imperium. They brought Eagles, Serbs, and Munins. And then, so we had the sniping rocks from the point of view of Greater Trash Community. And then NC Dot showed up in Serbs. Greater Trash Community also brought a Serb fleet, and Pandemic Horde brought Eagles. But through sheer weight of numbers, you could see here that they had kind of double the numbers. Oops, let me try that again. They had double the numbers of Greater Trash Community and Friends, and Triumvirate and Friends, should I say. And so therefore these rocks were not able to snipe off enough of the enemy fleets, and they just kept ticking away and just kept the Fortizar paused until they did enough damage to actually kill it. So that's kind of what's happened now with O-I, V, and H. So that's kind of the big news this week in terms of like sovereignty warfare. And, you know, Ghast did mention as well that potentially they have the ability of heading it into, I don't even, Oka-Gaken in Black Rise. Let's call it Oka for short, I think. Oka in Black Rise. Obviously, they can go into there, and they can hide out there if they need to, and then just, you know, do guerrilla warfare from there if they lose all their structures in Cloud Ring. So we'll have to see how that plays out. I'll have to see if I can get in touch with the Initiative as well, and see, because obviously they live next door in Fountain, and see if I can get them on the show on Twitch maybe later in the week to talk about it from their point of view as well. That would be good. All right, so let's move on. I think I've talked enough now about Cloud Ring. So let's talk about Pureblind. So Pureblind being right here. So as you know, Pureblind is mostly about Brave Collective, actually trying to get themselves installed in Pureblind. And as you know, they've been fighting Bandalogs. So Brave Collective having this constellation down here, and then this one system in the middle of that constellation. And they have been basically taking territory from Bandalogs, who are .ru. There you go. That's it, like that. So there was quite a notable moment in EL8 where, oh, by the way, just so before I forget as well, the video for the hull timer, there is a video here from Triumvirate's perspective on that hull timer that I talked about on the Sunday with all the shield hacks and the sniping rocks and everything. You'll be able to see it here. As always, with all of the YouTube videos that I mention on the channel, I link them in the description below. So go do check these out and help the people that actually create some content as well. All right, so there you go. So that's before I forgot. There you go. It's always important to mention these now. So with Brave, in EL8, a fight broke out. And as you can see, the numbers were very much in Brave's favor. Bandalogs were actually on their own to start with only 171 pilots. And then, if I remember correctly, so they were in Serbs, and then Tess showed up a little bit later in Munins to provide some reinforcements. But the whole purpose of this was because Brave Collective wanted to kind of establish a staging point in that system of EL8, in that middle of that constellation. And so they're able to anchor a Fortizar, an Astra House, and an Athanor. And even though Greater Trash Community came to their help in the form of We From Volta and Toilet Paper and Scumlords. And they actually dropped some, I assume what were Horde Dreads there. Actually, there's a few more there, hang on. Oops, missed a couple. So I used to see Revs as Horde Dreads. So they actually dropped some Horde Dreads as well, but they weren't able to stop these structures from anchoring. So maybe that is now the prelude to Brave Collective now actually doing sov warfare on the remainder of that constellation. And maybe we should start seeing these. Oops, I missed that a little bit. There we go, it should be there. maybe start seeing all these systems getting reinforced in the next few days and seeing some sovereignty warfare going on there. All right, last little bit of news of Brave. As you know, Brave have big numbers, but they did have a little dip here. And it is notable just simply because it was just one corporation that was leaving. I have to scroll quite a long way down. Bear with me. There's a lot of people come and go from Brave. Now, right down the bottom here, you'll see Industrial Mining and Mayhem, which is, as you can guess from its name, is a very industrial corp. Almost 900 members. They've decided to leave Brave and move elsewhere. I've heard of where they're going, but until it's made public, as you know, I kind of don't want to say anything that's OPSEC and stuff. But I have a good idea where they're going, and we shall see, whether their industry will be of use to that new group as and when they get there. All right, so then we're going to move on to, as we work our way around the map, we're going to go to Tribute. So we're going to talk a little bit about Nullsechnaya Sholupen, or they now have their new name, which is Elysians. So Elysians is now the former Nullsechnaya Sholupen corporations, and you can see here are all the usual suspects right here. So they have now come along and joined, obviously without Drop the Soap, which was a newest corporation. Talking which, if you've missed on previous videos, Anur basically just took over Nullsechnaya Sholupen because he still had leadership rights because they were on good terms. And so there's actually here a video where it shows Anur basically transferring the rights to the Keepstar, then destroying 1,182 jump clones. As you can see him doing it right here. So that I had that happen to me, and I had a set of supercarrier implants, armor implants, and I lost them all. There was a few billion lost, and that hurt. So, but anyway, you'll see him just transferring over all the structures and all that kind of stuff. And once again, that's linked in the description below. There's quite a lot of banter as well at the beginning as this is being done kind of live, and he's on comms, and you can hear the corp mates and stuff all talking about it. Okay, but on the flip side, also in Tribute, there is a citadel that was destroyed by Elysians. Now, the Fortissar belong to the Brexiteer, and there's only one character in the Brexiteer, it's called Brexit Dave. Now, I know that's somehow associated with either the kind of the former Nullsechnaya Sholupen or snuffed out. I couldn't make the connection, but what was interesting here, and this is the main reason for bringing it up, was that second most damage was from a Griffin piloted by Pittsburgh. Now, apparently the whole situation with Anur and Anur basically destroying NSH was to do with the then Nullsechnaya Sholupen bringing some Griffins to a snuffed out op and kind of messing up their op. And here we see Pittsburgh in a Griffin doing second most damage, putting the Knicks to shame down here with second most damage. There you go, with I think a Nemesis doing the most damage. So interesting to see a Griffin do more damage than a supercarrier. You kind of don't see that every day, so that's kind of the main reason for bringing that up. All right, then we move on to you know who. He's been mentioned quite a few times over the last few weeks in my videos. It is the drive-by shooter, a Ragnarok. In his Ragnarok, he has got himself another kill in 4-HWWF, which is the staging system of not only just Fraternity, but of Winter Coalition as a whole. And he managed to frag a golem, one-shot it once again. The video is linked in the description, but we can now not so much play a Ragnarok bingo, but I think we can start playing a Ragnarok poker, because I can see here that we have this Ragnarok in 4-H, we have this Ragnarok in 4-H, and we have this one in 4-H. Now, this one wasn't a solo, but does that make it 3 of a kind? And then in which case, then are we going to go for the full house with maybe 2 Vargas? So 3 golems and a Varga would make a full house. Or maybe we're going to go 4 of a kind with 4 golems. So place your bets, and we will see where that goes with a Ragnarok poker hands. All right, so what else am I going to move on to? Okay, I'm going to move on to another kind of fairly big news as well, all the way over in Malpais. Now, if you remember, there was an alliance called Reckless Contingency. Now, they didn't actually hold the Sov, but they did live in this constellation here. Now, Recon has gone through rather a meltdown. And if we go over here, you could see that it has dropped from 2,000 pilots to just like 250 or 260 or so. And if we actually look at the corporations, you will see that basically they have moved into Northern Coalition. Now, my understanding from this is that, from what I could perceive, is that Northern Coalition, or NC DOT should I say, NC DOT wanted the industrial capabilities that Recon provided, as they're in PAMFAM and closely allied in NC DOT spaces. They lived in their space, but they didn't want that layer of leadership, and it was kind of almost a merger at gunpoint, where these mostly industrialist groups were told they have to either move into NC DOT or else. Now, unfortunately, I don't know what's going to happen to the smaller groups. The smaller groups were kind of excluded from this deal, and so there's a whole bunch of smaller corps who are basically going to be left homeless now. So it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out, but pretty much this means that Recon or Reckless Contingency is no more. All right, but I jumped something. I actually missed something quite important. So there you go. So that was about it with Reckless Contingency. I also wanted to talk about Geminate. A couple of things in Geminate. The first one is, if we actually jump in there, nope, that's Veil of the Silent. That's not Geminate. Where's Geminate? There we go. As we now see the return of psychotic tendencies. I was talking about Arcos Core last week and how Arcos Core trying to claim in this constellation, and as well as dealing with no value, it looks like they're now going to have to deal with psychotic tendencies who have held this area's most systems, I think, if not all of this in this constellation in the past. So interesting times for these smaller groups here. Then there was a birthday fleet that happened in Geminate as well. And because I did these in the wrong order, I've got to try and find the back lateral report. Here it is. So it was in a system of 9P40-F. What it was about was, if we could find it, here we go. So Warp Eagle Fleet, who are a corporation who have now celebrating their first full year in fraternity, and it was their third corp birthday bash. And they decided to take out some capitals and a kitchen sink fleet and whelp it. And as you can see, it was a pretty hefty thing. We got a Moros, we got three Thanatoses, and Nidhogg were destroyed, and a couple of Minokawas. Some caps actually managed to get out of this, but they basically went right into Geminate and kind of told Pandemic Horde that they were there, and made it very clear that they were there. But this is the interesting thing. Pandemic Horde came out in a full Doctrine Munin fleet. So we're talking the Munins, the Claymores, the Hugins, the Lachesis, complete Doctrine, totally organized, well-organized, serious fleet. So how times have changed, where Pandemic Horde respond to a kitchen sink fleet with something other than a kitchen sink fleet. So there you go. So it's not surprising all these ships died when you're kind of facing a well-formed Doctrine. But there you go. So that's that for Geminate. Now, okay, let's do the giveaway. So as I said earlier on the show, we're still with the Healer Gila. And so I have a couple more of these to give away. So here's the Healer Gila right here. And as always, we're going to use a keyword that you need to put in the comments below and form a sentence with it. Try and make it entertaining or witty or something as well. Make it fun for me to read that way. And I think we're going to go with the word capital, as we saw this birthday fleet bring a bunch of caps. In a kitchen sink fleet, I think that was worthy of note. So capital is the key word. Make up a sentence with the word capital. The cutoff time is 1800 UTC on Friday, the 3rd of December. And then I will pop them into the prize draw, and then I will reply to your comment. So do check your comments by Saturday afternoon. I missed it last week. I should have done it on Friday. I missed because of my Twitch show. So I now kind of normally do it on a Saturday morning. So check Saturday afternoon. Your comments, see if I've replied, and maybe you've won a Scope Syndication skin. And also it gives me a chance to give you a reminder that my Twitch show is now every Friday at 2000 UTC, so come and check that out. All right, so let's go back to the map. So I've got Geminate here, so let's close that. Next, we're going to go into Curse. And with Curse, we're going to be talking about Jorund. Now Jorund is over here, there we go. And what was significant about Jorund was the initiative had a Fortizar there, and it was the last kind of initiative presence in Curse, and it was used as a staging system to kind of create content with FI.RE Coalition, etc. FI.RE decided that it had enough of that and decided to try and remove the initiative completely. So there was a Fortizar that was left, and let me see if I can pick the right battle report. Here we go. So in Jorund, now this turned out to be a grind, and once again you could see, similar to what we saw with the Imperium attacking Triumvirate, that the Fortizar was eventually destroyed, but at a price. That seems to be the way that Hull timers are going at the moment, especially when you consider that this includes the price of the Fortizar as well. And what we saw was that as this happened over downtime as well, that let me see if I can look at my notes. So yes, a FI.RE Coalition, Pandemic Horde and Test came in Eagles, Fraternity came in Munins, so shield hacks to the max again. That's heavy assault cruisers. Is that right? Heavy assault? Yeah, heavy assault cruisers. Just remember them as hacks. Were the kind of the doctrine of choice, and Eagles are the generally used, the ones that are used for structure bashing. And for the early part of it, it was mostly just sniping each other right at the very limit of their ranges. So the Imperium also brought shield hacks, they brought Eagles, Serbs and Munins, and they also brought some tornadoes. And the tornadoes were kind of bouncing around grid, trying to get close enough to one-shot off some of the support ships like the Hugens and the logistics ships of FI.RE Coalition, Legion of Death, Fraternity and Test. So this turned into a 3.5 hour fight, well, about 2.5 hours if you don't include the traveling time. So about 2.5 hours in almost full tie-dye, but it was manageable tie-dye. So modules still worked, so that was good. So we're kind of seeing generally on a node that if you get to about 1,000, tie-dye is extreme, but it is still workable, which is a good thing. So it means that FCs are able to actually kind of move around the grid and actually launch their probes and all that kind of stuff, and pilots, they can hit their modules and they may have to wait 5 to 6 seconds for them to work, or 10 seconds, but they do eventually kick in. So everything was kind of working just slowly as tie-dye is intended. So yes, the structure was eventually destroyed. So then let's jump over to Catch. So in Catch, what we're seeing is something quite interesting. Now, if you remember that this whole area here that is now Sigma used to belong to Dreadbomb. And what we have seen is, oops, I messed that up. There we go. What we have seen is that a new alliance has been created from some corporations leaving Dreadbomb. So if you can see Dreadbomb here, you can see the drop right there. So some quite sizable corporations have left Dreadbomb, and mostly, I think, mostly driven by sensible people. And then we've got Syndicate Enterprises and Battalion of the Lost have gone over to the initiative. So, oops, let me do that again. I'm getting carried away with my doodles now. I just want to use my yellow pen. There we go. So, sensible people and Syndicate Enterprises have gone and created Sigma Grindset. Now, they are still part of Wrecking Crew, but not part of Dreadbomb. And hopefully I'll be able to get a guest. I've been speaking to the alliance leader of Sigma Grindset. Hopefully I will be able to get him to come on my Twitch show on Friday, and we can get some proper news on what's going on there and kind of what led to it, etc. My understanding is that a lot of inactivity with Dreadbomb, with FCs being away and this kind of stuff, and also different viewpoints as to what the alliance should be doing next with the cause of these splits. But hopefully we'll find out more on Friday. So that's it for Catch. Then we're going to go over to Tenerifus. And in Tenerifus, what I wanted to talk about was the system of 3L3N-X. So Flying Dangerous have been trying to anchor an Astra House there so that they can start setting up a staging system with the view to moving into Catch to generate content. Now, right on the border here, if we actually go into Catch, you can see we've got WOMP, which is Weapons of Mass Production. If you want to know more about WOMP, I have an Alliance Spotlight where I talk to the leader of WOMP, and WOMP as they like to be known. So with WOMP, they're a kind of a medium-sized alliance now. and they have been growing some PvP teeth, especially since they were at war in the north and they moved down to Catch and into Dreadbomb. So they do hold their own. And in fact, if you actually look at the battle report here, you could see that, where is it? This is the right one, yeah. So weapons of mass production are bringing players, to fight this. But this turned out to be a really grindy fight again. The losses were pretty much equal on both sides. But the main thing for FI.RE Coalition, and Flying Dangerous in particular, was they were able to anchor this Astra House. But they've been basically not just fighting WOMP or Wrecking Crew for that matter. And if I actually look at my notes here, yeah, so basically Wrecking Crew, Red Menace Coalition, and Imperium all brought Serbs to this, and then the Initiative also brought some unions, Initiative being part of the Imperium. And then on the other side, you've got FI.RE Coalition with help from Test, came along as well. And they brought some, and Winter Coalition came along in Retributions to provide some tackle and to try and pin down these monitors that belong to these shield hacks. Now that's one of the only weaknesses with the shield hacks, the Munians and the Serbs. They rely on being able to move around extremely quickly. And if you can pin down the monitors, which are normally flown by the FCs, then the fleet grinds to a halt. You can then potentially bubble them. They have to try and then get a new anchor. And that's normally enough time to then actually do some quite intensive damage to the fleet. So that is kind of pretty much the only way you can pin down a heavy assault cruiser fleet is with things like Retributions and Blarpies. And we'll talk about Blarpies a little bit later on. So there you go. So we'll have to see now what happens with that as to whether the fights now move out of Tenerifus and into Catch, and whether WOMP end up on the receiving end of Flying Dangerous activity. I think weapons of mass production are mostly EU time zone though, and Flying Dangerous are US time zone if I remember correctly. So there isn't much of a crossover there, so we'll have to see how that kind of plays out or what the plan is there. Right, then we're just going to go over to Esoteria to talk about some content generating Astra House. So if you go down to Esoteria here in the south, this Astra House was in DTX 8-M. It belongs to Fastkick, Fastkick being part of Steinrus living in Stein, and then coming out and harassing PIBC. Now, for this fight, if we have a look at this battle report, now it's actually in 4 parts because, like I said, it is a content generator. So basically we have 4 groups here, but the people that were interested in destroying the structure were Team C. The people that wanted to defend it were Fastkick and Co, or Steinrus, which is Team B. I've included Fraternity in this group as well because they just like to shoot PIBC. So they like to shoot these guys, and these guys wanted to shoot these guys to destroy their Astra House. But then what we had the Imperium, who sided with Team C, and then we had FI.RE Coalition, who sided with Team B. And so you end up with this kind of Team A, Team B versus Team C, Team D. And you ended up with a very, very big brawl as a consequence of that. And the Astra House actually survived, which was cool. This fight mostly took place, I thought it was in GTX, but it's actually in C9N-CC, which I think is actually next door. But anyway, so big fight kicked out, lots of, quite a bit of tie-dye on that, but once again, manageable tie-dye. But one of the things that was an unfortunate loss here was the Imperium weren't able to really engage properly. And the reason why, they had a really unlucky death with this Tengu. So this Tengu happened to warp on grid behind a scepter from Fraternity, who actually landed on the same point on grid and decloaked the Tengu. And if we look down this list, you'll see that Fraternity were in Blaster Harpies or Blarpies. And so they were able to get straight on top of this Tengu and destroy it. Now this Tengu was fit with combat probes. So it was a FC Tengu, Cloaky Tengu, that was supposed to be there to be able to provide warpins for the fleet. And obviously with that Tengu gone, it made things very, very difficult for the Imperium to actually engage properly and be able to warp in onto enemy fleets. So yes, that was just one of these things where bad warp, and things don't work out in your favor for the whole fleet. So that was quite unfortunate there for the Imperium, and very lucky for Fraternity and Team A and Team B. Right, so is that it for that? Yep, so then all I want to talk about as well is I wanted to mention last week this Prometheus that died. I talked about a faction Fortizar dying, when it's unusual because I didn't know much about it. I didn't know anything about Transgress. Well, I've now found out from one of the old directors of Clear and Present Threat, which was the corporation that owned the faction Fortizar, that basically Transgress are a low-sec alliance that hang out with Phoenix Naval Systems. Then Clear and Present Threat, which was the corporation, were disliked by Transgress. And when they were part of a group or an alliance called Rouge Syndicate. So Rouge Syndicate, you can see Clear and Present Threat down the bottom there, went to no value, as we saw. And then this alliance was eventually disbanded. But as a consequence of this, when the Fortizar was actually hit, one of the directors who wasn't in a position to do about it had already gone to RSA, to a really strong alliance, and the other directors just didn't react fast enough to the war deck and realize what was happening, and didn't unanchor it in time, and so that's why it died. So there you go. All right, then very quickly, ratting, supers, and super carriers. So 14 Rorquals, so the Rorquals are back up a little bit. We'll have to see if that number changes, obviously with changes coming up with industry and stuff. 7 ratting supers. Now there's actually one particular one that I just want to bring to your attention, which is very unfortunate, which is the same player lost a ratting Nyx on the November the 20th, and then lost the same ratting Nyx in the same system 7 days later, in the same system, like I said, to a really strong alliance. Now, one of the things that may be an issue with this, and this is something to point out for advice for people in the future, this is the actual pilot showing off his ratting skills in a Vendetta, and it's in 4K, so it's beautiful to look at. But unfortunately, it really doesn't help if you don't hide your overview. And 2 days after this video was actually published, this Nyx actually died in this system, and then 8 days later it died again. So I think lessons to be learnt there, and also if you do publish content on the internet like this and you are flying shiny stuff, or you are very repetitive in your behavior, do make sure that you kind of blur out kind of key information, as otherwise it works out very, very costly for you. All right, so then I need to finish off on a very, very different note, and I need to bring to your attention that yesterday, on Sunday, there was a remembrance in Eve for a pilot that passed away by the name of Steprow. Steprow was an FC in an alliance called the Unthinkables. He was very well known in that alliance and known in the game. He then was also in a couple of alliances before returning back to his home corp of Unforeseen Consequences, which was part of Valkyrie Alliance. And unfortunately, he passed away to COVID recently. So there was a memorial for him. And so therefore, I think I'm going to end the show with just a minute taken from the Sino Vigil that took place in C006 yesterday. So that's all from me, and see you on the next episode. Bye.